everyone. It is time for you to rise from your graves because it is yet again time for Never Scream It. My name is Trent. I'm sitting here with the undead Betsy.
Good evening.
Took you a while to get into the groove of that one, Betsy.
I didn't know what to say to that. Because sometimes you do things on the fly and I'm expected to react and I'm not prepared. I'm not good at improv.
Betsy, this is the 5th annual beginning of Never Scream It. And we were talking right before we started to hit record to say it's actually our first annual, because the first time we did we called it our October series of movies because we didn't have a clever name for it yet.
We came up with Never Scream It in the second year.
You came up with Never Scream It for year 2, so I'm just calling it our first annual Never Scream It, because the entire month of October, we turn the show into Never Scream It because we have said it many times. Betsy and I are not ones that have really gravitated towards horror, the horror genre of movies. So we are forcing ourselves into the world of horror one movie at a time. So to begin our 5th annual Never Scream It, we're going back to the 80s to watch Hellraiser. Now, Betsy, this is a movie that neither of us have seen. What do you know about this one?
You can file this one under the oft-repeated category, I know this movie exists, but I don't have a fucking clue what it is.
I think you probably just don't know what it's about. But you do know something.
I know one thing and one thing only about Hellraiser, and it is Pinhead.
Pinhead.
Why I know that, where I picked up that information, I don't know. It's the kind of thing where you see a movie on the shelf called Hellraiser, and there's this angry-looking individual with a bunch of pins coming out of their face. Mm-hmm. That imagery tends to stay with you. I don't know how old I was when I was first made aware of Hellraiser and Pinhead. I've never seen it, so I really don't know the significance of the character or how it play into the storyline. And as far as the plot, don't know what it is. Don't know if they are actually from hell, if they are a demon, if they are a representative of hell. There's one line of dialogue where someone says, "Welcome to hell." Cool.
I'm really enjoying this, by the way.
I don't know what this movie is, Trent. I really, really don't. But when we were looking into what should we focus on, we try to do some of the heavy hitters. This is one that has come up many, many times. Yes. I know there are more than one. There's at least
there's
one
a ton.
more, if not a ton, of Hellraiser movies.
I think there's like 6 or 7 Hellraiser movies. But like you, I kind of know nothing else about this movie. I know Pinhead. I know this is Clive Barker. And I know that you know the name Clive Barker.
But I don't know why.
You don't know from what. This morning, Betsy and I were kind of looking at his history, and he's basically only done this. He has been like an artist in this field. He's been a writer in this field. He's made a ton of movies, but they're all kind of around this same theme. And that theme being kind of devil possession, demon possession, something like that. There are regular ass humans here, but I don't think that this movie really follows the same path that any other movie does. It's not just possession. It's not just a slasher movie. It's not just gory. It is kind of everything. So really beyond that, I know nothing else about Hellraiser. I have heard it is people who really like horror movies really like Hellraiser. That's the extent of what I know about it. So with that, we're going to go and watch Hellraiser for the 5th annual Never Scream It. We will be right back. And we have returned from the underworld of Hellraiser. Betsy, how are you feeling after that one?
That movie's messed up.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of the darkest horror movies that we have covered in any year that we have been doing this.
The word I would use to describe this, yeah, it's dark, but it's unique. More than anything else, when I was watching this movie, I was thinking to myself, God, I have never seen anything like this before.
Not quite, no. I think you're right. This does stand out amongst the ones that we've seen.
It's not just, and I'm talking all of the movies we have covered for Never Scream It and Never Scream It 101 over on Patreon. It's not one of these genre movies that you can just plug this into. It's not like demon possession. It's not a slasher movie. It isn't anything but what it is.
It's kind of two movies also at the same time because they give you a little setup at the beginning. There's this box. It
Yeah.
unleashes these guys. We don't know who they are. But then there's a completely separate story of this guy coming back from the dead.
And he needs flesh from other bodies and blood.
And one almost has nothing to do with the other until the very end of the movie when this girl opens the box and says,
Yeah.
no, he got away from you.
Everything kind of comes together at the end. And I think there's not really anything here that I am left confused by.
No, I understood it. It's just we didn't spend a lot of time with the Cenobites.
Yeah.
They're at the beginning, they're at the end.
You know, they're the middle managers of the underworld. They get to interview people who are wanting to join their club, to join their ranks, and by the end they get to fire somebody.
So to speak.
So that was kind of what I was thinking about here. The Cenobites are, yes, they are like kind of demons, but kind of not. I kind of read up on this a little bit. There is like their own religion that they are a part of. They call it the Order of the Gash. And I'm sure they go into it a lot more in the sequels to this movie and whatnot in the expanded universe of Hellraiser. But these are just some of the leaders of this order. And like what this box is and what it represents and what it can do and what it can't do, I don't really know. Why is the box special? Why does it summon them? And why does it also banish them?
These are the things that could be elaborated on, could be explained more thoroughly, but also doesn't matter. Not that kind of movie.
It doesn't really matter, no. But as I was saying, there's really, other than the expanded questions about what the Cenobites are, where they come from, who they work for, do they have other underlings that are underneath them? I know that there are other Cenobites. I think I read it was just under 30 in the expanded Hellraiser universe. There is about 30 other Cenobites that kind of have their own characteristics of them.
As they start expanding this and doing sequels and stuff.
Yeah, so like the guy with the teeth, I think he's called the Chatterer. Obviously, we already knew about Pinhead because he's kind of the main one, but he's only really the main one here because the other Cenobites, or at least a couple of them in this movie, they were supposed to have some lines, but the lines that they recorded didn't really come through on the recording. So instead of dubbing over them with other people, it really wouldn't have made sense if they did that because it wouldn't sound right. Instead of doing that, they just said, okay, Pinhead, you're the main guy because we can understand you.
It's weird that they would say we're not going to overdub these lines for those characters when they overdubbed literally 90% of the cast in this movie.
Not quite 90%, but they absolutely do dub over a lot of these people because you can just tell looking at them, like the nurse and the doctor when the daughter is locked up in the hospital area. They've been dubbed over. I think the boyfriend also was dubbed over the entire time.
The moving guys, it was happening a lot because you had said this guy, the director, Clive Barker, was from Liverpool.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the movie, when Christy is walking to their house, that is Liverpool because I've been there and it looked familiar to me.
Yep.
And there was some line at the beginning of the movie where her dad is talking to his new wife and he says, we're closer to your part of the world now. So implying that they've moved back to the UK.
Yeah, because the woman, she has an English accent, so you would think that, okay, yeah, they're in London?
Yes, but then literally no one else around them has an English accent.
Right,
that
it's
makes
just
no
her.
sense.
Not the daughter. I mean, the daughter isn't her daughter.
No, but my point is, they say something about moving back there, and then everybody who lives here has an American accent.
I wonder why they did that.
It's because they were trying to make it appeal to a wider audience, and they were concerned that these very British people would not be understood, and it would be a detriment to the film. And I don't disagree with that, because American audiences, especially in the 80s, were probably very lazy. We tend to be lazy when it comes to international film. And this is an international film, even if you don't think of it that way. So if it was a whole cast of people speaking with British accents, you probably would have had a harder time with it.
Or at least the characters that are not the dad and the daughter.
Yeah, they make sense. They are the Americans.
Yeah.
Everybody else by rights should not be an American. But it is weird when you think too hard about it, the fact that everyone else is just overdubbed.
Yeah, and in thinking about it in a 2025 mindset, you would think these days they wouldn't bother with the overdub because you would just get actors that are understandable, maybe. You would maybe go through a more thorough casting process, but hey, this is a low budget ass movie. It's a fucking horror movie made in the UK by a guy who had made, I think, 2 other movies prior to this that completely bombed, but he finally got one more chance here. He signed over the rights to the production company, the rights to the movie and the characters and the property, because that was the only way that he was able to get the budget to make the movie. Which is a real detriment to Clive Barker because he wasn't able to cash in on the franchise because there are 9 other movies in this franchise. So I am a little bit confused though. I'm still not really gauging if you really like this movie. Are you thinking, oh, I'm intrigued, I want to know more? Do you want to see the sequel? Like, how are you feeling about it?
I don't think I'd go so far as to say I liked it. I was disturbed by it, certainly.
Yeah.
I think I understand why other people really would like this if you're really into horror movies. But yeah, I would say maybe intrigued is a better word for it.
Okay.
Because I didn't dislike it. I was interested the whole time. And there are definitely moments where they use the lack of sound very effectively. They cut out the music and you just hear a fucking heartbeat where I'm kind of holding my breath and like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Think about though, if you were like, I don't know, 17 years old and you're at a sleepover and you're watching this movie with your friends, whether it's you or me or anybody that age, I think people that age would fucking love this movie because it's gory, it's bloody, there's a young girl in it that you can kind of put yourself into, and it's not overly complicated. You can just get into it because, hey, it is this scary thing with fucking monsters.
But when you're trying to analyze it at least a little bit, it's also a little confusing, as I said.
Yeah.
You get this whole setup where he has this puzzle box. They show him getting all these hooks pulled into him. His body basically explodes, and then he disappears. And we don't know why, and we don't know how, and we don't get any explanation until the very end of the movie. And then the rest of the movie is a completely different thing. Like, you could almost find some other reason for him to come back from the dead.
Yeah. The simple explanation of the box is it is a device that calls on these Cenobites. You open the box, we come. What that means beyond that, I have no idea.
And they don't spend time exploring it.
No, is it like a fucking genie's lamp where you rub it and you get 3 wishes? No, they just show up and kill your ass.
No, it's more a Pandora's box where you don't want to fuck with that shit.
Yeah. So like at the beginning of the movie, before he opens it, he is kneeling in some fucking room, seeming to do like a seance of some kind in order to figure out how to open the box, which in reality, you can just fucking open it with your hands. I don't know what it was that he was into, because when they discover his little like squatter's hut up in the attic, there's nothing there to suggest that he's into fucking demons or Satan or anything in his little area. It's just he's got a bunch of photos of him having sex with ladies.
He's kind of a fuckboy, and he is into some weird stuff and trying to like expand his mind in like the kinkiest ways he could come up with.
Yeah, he likes to dominate women, seemingly.
And when you hear him describe his experience with this box, he says, they showed me the greatest pleasures and the greatest pains. So it's like he was into the experience of opening the box and being tortured.
Yeah.
But then he couldn't escape it.
We also don't really see that part of it either.
That's why I'm saying the extended universe might almost be more interesting than this by itself, because you might get some more of those answers.
You get to maybe follow where the Cenobites are from.
Because the explanation they give is we just are like from parts of the universe that you can't understand.
Like you get to go to a different dimension.
Yeah.
Like when the daughter is opening up the box, the Cenobites show up and they're inviting her basically to come along with them.
It doesn't seem so much an invitation as you opened the box, we're here
to
doing
take
this.
you. Yeah. And then she's changing her mind. So instead, she has to offer up somebody else as, I don't know, a sacrifice or somebody to take my place. But they're kind of bad negotiators because they say, okay, well, yeah, we know Frank. Frank is this guy who escaped from us, but not really. Nobody escapes from us. So she leads the Cenobites to the house where Frank is, but he doesn't look like Frank anymore because he's wearing the father's skin. And then after Frank is dead, or they get him back, they go back on their not quite promise to say, okay, we're going to take you too.
I don't think there was ever really a deal struck. I think they
No,
were
there
more
wasn't.
concerned about there's a guy got on the loose. I almost wish this ended in a much darker way where she doesn't escape, where it's just you're trapped. You set them loose, and now you're fucked.
The Cenobites got their way. They got another soul, let's say.
Yeah, because you opened the box and you just managed to get out of it. At the end, there's no explanation. She just fiddles with the box and it sends them back. I wish it ended the other way where she's just fucked. I think that would have made for a way more interesting ending to the movie instead of just starting the cycle again. Because she gets rid of the box, and then this homeless guy, who is apparently not a homeless guy, he's a dragon in a man suit.
Bone skeleton dragon monster. Sure.
And then it all just starts the cycle again.
Okay.
I have questions about how all this works.
Okay, because we've watched a good number of other horror movies, there tends to be a final girl or somebody who survives. The good ones, anyway, they have some kind of survivor who can tell the tale, let's say. And presumably because she is taking this box and throwing it into the fire, well, then that's going to be the end of it. There's no more box. There's no more Cenobites. I can go home, let's say. I don't know what the hell her story is after this, but because this guy picks up the box, you know as the audience member that there's a future maybe. So because there is not a resolution to that, like everybody isn't dead, I think it's a better movie because you're setting up what could happen in the future. Because at this point in 1987, how many other really long-standing franchises already were a thing? Halloween had a bunch of sequels. Nightmare on Elm Street already had a bunch of sequels.
They didn't have that many, though, because it was still the 80s. Those were happening at the same time
Not a
this movie
bunch,
was being made.
But at the very least, those were very successful.
Yes, so you're trying to stand apart from all of those slasher movies.
Which is why I said that this one is very unique. Now, I haven't seen any of those other movies yet.
Asterisk.
But I know enough about them to know that the people who made those movies set them up for sequels. But I think with that said, this is a good place for us to take a break. We're going to come back and talk a lot more about Hellraiser. We'll be right back. You know, recently I've been bored and feeling out of sorts. My normal podcasts just weren't cutting it anymore, so I talked to my doctor, and she recommended patreon.com/neverseenitpod, and now I feel better than ever.
Patreon.com/neverseenitpod is a once-weekly subscription podcast used to create joy. Side effects may include a sense of euphoria, aching muscles from smiling, and a dependence on the host's addictive personalities. Do not take this podcast if you are allergic to fun, have a history of laughing until you pee, or are afraid of a good time.
Talk to your doctor about patreon.com/neverseenitpod today. So because we are on this horror movie journey, we're doing the Never Scream It during the month of October. We're doing Never Scream It 101. We've been watching some horror movies. Were there any horror movies that you were reminded of in the course of watching Hellraiser? Or even some that aren't even considered horror movies, because I got one.
The only movie I thought of while watching this was The Mummy from 1999.
Yeah.
Because it's that thing where his body is like coming back together and growing skin.
Has to be regenerated.
He's regenerating. I feel like the guys who animated Imhotep in The Mummy at least maybe subconsciously referenced Hellraiser for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was the only one I was distinctly thinking of, apart from the fact that the husband and wife are both in other properties that I actually have seen.
Of course, you might as well just say it.
Because the guy was on the X-Files. Her dad, he was in one episode of the X-Files, and the woman was in a couple episodes of Doctor Who. So things I enjoy outside of this.
Betsy, the other movie that we have actually covered on this show was Under the Skin.
Okay.
Where a woman or a semi-woman is sent out to gather human bodies in order for them to be consumed into this creature, let's say. It is kind of like The Mummy, where you're physically getting their flesh and their blood from their bodies, but in that movie, they take everything but the skin.
It could also be, you know, Sweeney Todd, where they're going up and they're killing people and they're using their bodies for something else.
Yes.
The other one I thought of, Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay, I haven't seen that movie, so you're going to have to indulge me.
There is a man-eating plant that needs blood to survive, and he suckers Seymour into bringing him bodies that he has to chop up and feed to the plant.
All right, then.
So it's kind of that thing, too.
Yeah. And I love the fact, this is really the thing that we should be talking about here. I really love the makeup work and the mask work and just all of the effects that they're throwing on these bodies, because none of it is CG, obviously. This is 1987.
This movie, if nothing else, is a standout in the world of special effects. And it is disturbing when that body starts coming to life at the beginning and there's just these arms covered in goo coming from the ground, and then they become fingers, and then there's a skull and there's ribs.
And it attaches to the brain on the floor, and it starts to emerge from the floor. And yes, puppet, whatever it is amazing.
It seems like a combination of like stop motion animation.
Yeah.
They also had some things where they clearly did some time lapses and then played that in reverse.
Right. There's a lot of backward shots.
There's also when she goes into that room and he is now alive in like the next sequence. And there's just a guy in a completely like prosthetic suit crawling on the floor.
Yeah.
That was fucked
like fucking
up.
army crawling. Yeah. This flesh body. Oh my God.
That weirded me out so much. Or when he's like, don't look at me.
Don't look at me.
But you're going to make us look at you.
There's even a moment there at the end where Frank actually tells her just the opposite. You need to look at me.
Is that when he's like fully formed or almost fully formed?
Almost fully formed, yeah.
Yeah. The way they go through the phases where he is just this pile of goo, then he has got kind of a body.
He's got a full body. He's got bones and he can walk around, but there's no skin there. There's no organs there.
Yeah, and as he gets further along, he's got the muscles, but then he's very like covered in blood and bleeding all over his clothes.
He keeps leaking everywhere.
And
then why is he wearing clothes?
I don't know. He becomes self-conscious of his
He needs
skin.
to cover up.
But
He's embarrassed.
My meats are out, Trent. And then in the end, when he needs skin, he doesn't need to like suck up his organs. He literally rips the skin off of the body and wears it as a flesh suit.
Yeah.
And he's got all of that blood along the hairline on his neck. How does this girl not notice her father is covered in blood?
Right.
And that he's got little skin tags coming off his forehead.
It's like he separated the skin on his scalp all the way down his body and then just kind of stepped into it.
Wiggled into it.
Like it's a wetsuit.
Oh God. But then
I didn't mean to put that image in your brain, Betsy, but that's what I was thinking about.
and then just sort of folds it on at the top and covers it with like a little hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of those transitions, the special effects work is very, very good just for Frank alone. And that doesn't even talk about like all the weird little rats that they've got, all of the pinhead and the Cenobite costumes. Those all just at the surface look like they took hours. You've got people in full body prosthetics. That is time consuming. And you can tell that the budget that they had all went to the special effects because the rest of the movie basically takes place in this one house.
Yeah, they go to the hospital once. They go outside a couple of times. There's that really cool shot of the daughter and the boyfriend making out near the subway stop, and the camera just kind of pulls out. But other than those shots, no, they kind of stay in this house the entire movie.
They kept it very minimal so that they didn't have to spend a lot of time lighting a bunch of places and going to different locations. It's all either on a set or in this specific location.
And you know, some of the designs of the Cenobites and just what all of the supernatural stuff looks like is again very, very unique. But I will say, one thing that I was also thinking about throughout the entirety of the movie was the fact that this movie has seemed to inspire a whole lot of video game makers, specifically in the 90s and in the early 2000s. Because I pegged at least 2 or 3 different designs from this movie that I have seen copy pasted into other video game stuff, specifically and mostly Resident Evil. One of the Cenobites with the teeth that is kind of chattering up and down, he's called the Chatterer.
Is that why he felt so familiar to me?
That guy looks exactly like the tyrant in Resident Evil 3 that is chasing these other guys around the...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never played Resident Evil, but I've watched you either play the games or watch videos of other people playing the games.
Yes.
And that one in particular with all the teeth out,
Yes.
I'm like, this is something I've seen before, but I don't know where. I don't know where I've seen this thing. That's got to be it. Because I wouldn't have pegged that.
100%. Yeah, I'll have to show it to you specifically after we're done here.
You will.
So another one.
Thank you for doing that, because that was going to drive me nuts where I knew I'd seen this kind of imagery.
Yeah. Another one here is when the daughter is in the hospital and she opens up the box and this portal to this infinite nothingness opens up. She walks in there and it's this fucking creature that is a scorpion slash bug creature
slash anglerfish.
Yeah, it's all these different things. That design isn't specifically copied in a Resident Evil, but that concept where it's one animal on one side of the creature and it's another animal on the bottom side.
There's a lot of weird malformed creatures, like half this, half that.
Yeah, kind of spliced together.
A lot of scientific experimentation.
Gone wrong. Very wrong.
Very wrong.
The other one here, I could not stop thinking about it after he said it like 5 times. In the Fallout games, in specifically Fallout 3, there are what are called ghouls, who used to be people who were out in the world when the bombs dropped in the Fallout universe, but they survived and they turned into ghouls, which are basically a husk of a human without skin, without hair, without anything. They're still the same people as they were before, but that's what they are. But in Fallout 3, when you approach one of these ghouls, this guy says, "Don't look at me." I have no idea whether or not that is a reference to this movie or not, but I could not stop thinking about it.
There is definitely a correlation, especially in the world of video games, as we have been covering all of these horror movies. It's not the first time, and it will not be the last time that you have been watching something like this and seen the inspiration it had on some other property, specifically in the video game world.
Also, horror video games in general. Resident Evil is just chock-a-block full of references to old horror, and the more and more that we watch these movies, the more I'm taking out of them because I've played these fucking games. Specifically when we covered the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's that scene from Resident Evil 7. If you've seen the movie and you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. So I don't really think there's much else of substance to really talk about here, but I know there's some little bits that we got to mention here. What else do you have?
What is this woman's fascination with Frank? He is such a fuckboy. Like, he shows up in the rain, he's like, "I'm Frank. I'm the brother." And then they start literally sucking face. He's got his fingers in her mouth and he's sucking on her chin.
What is the fascination with kissing with fingers?
There's a lot of fingers in mouths in this movie. It's a little upsetting to me.
It's very upsetting. I did not care for that at all.
And then she goes so far that she wants to be with this man that she brings random men home and murders them with a hammer.
With a fucking hammer. That is maybe the most visceral thing in the entire movie, because you know what a hammer can do to a surface of something. You also know what it's going to do to a skull.
Yeah, unhappy housewife gone to an 11 to get out of this situation.
Even the little tiny moments here after she beans, I think the first guy, he falls to the floor and you can see like his chin is kind of off. You can see the flesh under the chin or something.
She got him in the mouth.
It's
yeah.
it's very quick when they show it on screen, but it's very believable. Speaking of Julia, there's a moment here. I think it's when they're doing the flashback. It's when she's like thinking about her encounter with Frank for the first time. There's this chanting going on that is almost to the beat of a heartbeat, but then the heartbeat turns into a chant of her name. It's also to the beat of his thrusting. Julia, Julia, Julia.
Except it's Julia, Julia,
Yeah.
Julia. So you would almost miss it. You pointed it out. I probably wouldn't have noticed it otherwise.
There are a lot of other moments like that in the movie too, where the music is kind of going along and there are heartbeats, or there are heartbeat equivalents going on in the movie too.
There's also a few things in this movie I guess I'm looking for your interpretation of, because it seems like they're filling it with just some imagery that is disturbing and interesting to have it in the movie. So there's the part where Christy is having a nightmare and she is in this room and there's feathers flying and there's a body under a sheet and it just starts bleeding and there's a baby crying. What is that? That happens.
That's a great question.
Or like the homeless guy who keeps staring at her shows up at the pet store and starts eating live crickets. What do these things serve for the movie?
People eat crickets. That's not out of the realm of, normalcy. Maybe normalcy is not the great word to say there, but
you get what I'm saying.
I do.
These
the
don't
dream
seem...
sequence, the dream sequence itself, I cannot give you an explanation for. It's just a creepy dream. The only thing I can surmise is the fact that she is near this Frank guy. And somehow he is influencing not only her dreams, but other people's dreams too.
There's also the time where she escapes Frank and she wakes up in the hospital, but there's that moment where we're seeing her remember his face and then he turns into a flower and then the nurse is watching these flowers blooming on television.
Why is the nurse watching a flower blooming channel?
But you get what I'm
saying? What is that
saying?
about?
They're just kind of sprinkling in this weird imagery that is not explained.
No, and that hospital too doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, the doctor and the nurse are acting really weird. They don't want her to get out of bed. They don't want her to leave the room.
And they say the cops are going to want to talk to you.
The cops want to talk to you. And the doctor is like showing her the box. And he puts the box on the table saying, maybe this will jog your memory. To what? You don't know what the fuck happened.
Like, is this a situation where once Frank re-entered the world, they all entered this nightmare and they just don't even realize it?
I don't know.
Like, they're all in this game and haven't figured it out yet. It's the only thing that would make sense is that something has been unlocked by Frank coming back. Because otherwise, why are we including all of this weird imagery and the nightmares and all this other stuff throughout the movie that doesn't really serve a purpose to the story?
I don't know either, but I would say the most disturbing thing about this movie, Betsy, beyond all of the blood and gore and, demonic shit, is the fact that this couple would move into this house without taking care of the burnt up husk of a room that is upstairs.
Or the vile rotting meat and things in the kitchen. There's like bugs and things.
Well, they do take care of that. But again, the room upstairs is infested with rats and mice and blood and all sorts of shit that I have no idea what the fuck happened in this room. It looks like there was a fire here, but you didn't bother to do anything about it. You're just going to stay on the main floor the entire time you're living here? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a big house. We have enough rooms. We don't need that room.
No, Betsy, if we had a burnt up room in our basement, we wouldn't just ignore it.
It's also full of rats. The rats would be more upsetting to me.
The rats are going to get out.
I'm not concerned about the fact the room had a fire in it. I'm concerned that there are rats in my house.
That too. The other thing that really got to me, and I knew right away that this woman was bad news from the get-go, is the fact that when her husband is bringing her into this house, seemingly it is a house that was left to him by his parents?
Question mark?
I think. But the woman is smoking a cigarette, and as he's trying to convince her, hey, yeah, this is a good place for us to live, she tosses the cigarette on the wood floor and puts it out with her foot. That's a dick move. I'm sorry.
She has no respect for this home.
Fuck that.
Which is why she's just murdering people and then leaving the bodies in the spare room.
Yeah.
She doesn't even get rid of them. She just stashes them.
What is your end game here, woman? Are you literally just wanting to be with the fuckboy and you just go on with your life?
Yes, he is the greatest sex she's ever had, and she doesn't care if he doesn't have a skin. She's gonna help him get a skin suit.
But it's still going to be your husband's skin.
I don't know if you noticed this, but when he was her husband, he had blue eyes. When he was Frank,
Yeah.
he had brown eyes.
I did notice
because
that.
Frank has brown eyes.
Yeah, because somehow he kept his eyes.
And again, your daughter doesn't notice this about you?
Yeah.
A person you've seen every day for your entire childhood?
Also, what kind of an uncle are you if you're calling your niece or telling your niece to call you daddy or something to that effect?
Oh, he's sick. He's a sick man who's
Yeah.
into sick shit.
No.
We don't like Frank. He has no redeeming qualities and he deserved what came to him.
It's what you get for fucking around with the underworld. I'm sorry. Which, by the way, we haven't really even mentioned how he came back into the world to begin with. Because, yeah, we talked about him regenerating and whatnot, but it came about because his brother comes up to the room. He's bleeding everywhere profusely, and it's leaking into the floorboards beneath this room. It seems like the blood is kind of collecting into something that approximates a heart. So was that just left there after Frank was doing his seance, and that's just what is remaining of Frank?
Again, there's not a lot of explanation. That's
I
why I'm
know.
saying there's details I would have liked explained to me, or just anything to help me understand how these two things connect.
See, you're kind of coming at this the way I come at sci-fi. Like, I want to know everything about sci-fi. I want a sci-fi movie to be 3 hours long. You want to know more about the intricacies of why the demons are doing what they're doing. They're fucking demons. That's what they do.
But they don't say they're demons. They don't
Oh,
address
I
it at all.
know.
The movie just begins with this guy fucking around with a box, and then it opens, and a bunch of hooks come and rip his flesh apart. And the next thing we see is this Cenobite, who we've never seen before. We don't know they're a Cenobite, putting together the pieces of his face that are left on the floor amongst a sea of just
flesh.
ears and flesh and intestines and blood, and they're just piecing the face together, and then they close the box and they go home. And that's how the movie begins. And we don't address that again until the end of the movie.
I think this is where you and I differ. In the case of horror movies, I am letting horror movies completely wash over me, and I'm taking them as they're coming. You have so many other questions. That's the difference.
Not all the time. Not
all
every
the time. Not all the time.
Just this one in particular, I do have some questions about.
That's fair. Well, Betsy, I think we have reached the end of our first episode of Never Scream It for 2025. How you feeling? How you feeling so far?
I ain't mad about it. Like I said, I'm not going to go so far as to say I loved this one, but I didn't dislike this one. There is a lot of really good stuff within Hellraiser that I'm impressed with.
Would you then want to watch Hellraiser 2?
Maybe. Maybe not for the show. I don't know if it's just something we'd put on sometime.
All I'm saying now is, sitting here right now, are you intrigued to watch the next one?
It would very much depend if they get more disturbing than this, because this one's pretty disturbing on its own.
By design. It's supposed to be. But all right, that is where we're going to leave Hellraiser for now. What did you think about this movie when you first saw it? Are you a fan of the Clive Barker-averse? Have you seen the rest of the Hellraiser stuff? Send us an email to neverseenitpod@gmail.com. Just like our man Sergio did a few weeks ago, somehow, I don't remember exactly what the context was, but we started talking about K-pop demon hunters. You know, that Netflix movie where there's a bunch of music in it that got really popular outside of the movie.
We haven't watched it yet, but we were
No.
talking about should we watch it? And I think that's why he's emailing us.
Yeah, he says, well, the subject line is, should we watch K-pop demon hunters? He says, hello, Betsy and Trent. Yes, the international Netflix sensation K-pop demon hunters is definitely worth a watch. Am I biased? I don't think so. I've never been interested in K-pop before, and I thought it was just a colorful kids movie. But Netflix kept showing it to me whenever I browsed. And then the song Golden came up on my radio. It is catchy, it is memorable, it gets stuck in your head, so I decided to watch the movie. The first part had a lot of exposition, but just enough to keep you hooked instead of bored. Because what is up with this animation? Is this what Korean animation looks like? Wait, wasn't this an American production? But Sony is Japanese, and the story was written by a Canadian? Why does the style look so familiar? This is Spider-Man Across the Universe, but better. Because it's a musical?
Yeah, it's the same company, Sony Animation.
Yeah,
did this
Sony
movie.
Animation did this. They also did all of those Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse,
Yes.
all of those movies, which are incredible, by the way. So the stylization of the K-pop movie is very much like the Spider-Man movie without the comic book aesthetic. That's my understanding anyway. He says, okay, I needed a rewatch. So I think he just went back halfway through writing the email. He watched the sing-along version to get some of the reviews and background info to clarify what I just watched. Based on classic Korean culture, this high-octane animated musical is mainly targeted at a younger generation, younger than mine, but not exclusively. The world in which the movie takes place looks to be a lot like South Korea, and the added magic of demons made it logical that it kept on showing up in my recommendation. I mean, I watched a bunch of Korean drama as well as The Good Place, and I apparently needed to learn about K-pop. The musical aspect did not feel too Disney-esque because the movie is about a musical group. So yeah, it makes sense.
It's pop music. It's different from what Disney is currently doing or really has always done.
Yeah. He says the duration is roughly about 90 minutes, but it feels a lot shorter. And he puts a link in here to a list of the best 90-minute movies of all time. He says it could easily be added to that list.
Oh, excellent. I love a 90-minute movie.
Yes, we do. He says, so why did I like it? I don't know. Am I mentally a young adult? Just watch the movie and review it. Your regular fan, Sergio, not always making sense. Well, thank you for your stream of consciousness, Sergio. We always appreciate every time you email us.
And that's another vote in the yes column for we should watch K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah, Betsy, we're coming to the end of the year here. Once Never Scream It in October is over with, we've got 8 slots that we have to fill with something. And I think Betsy and I are gravitating towards more, let's just do some catch up, because I don't think there's really been any time this year except for the 2 weeks in August where we did the Shyamalan movie and we did Cobra. But I think every other month this year, we've had some kind of plan, some kind of series going on.
And we really haven't spent a lot of time on anything new.
Yeah, we haven't done hardly any 2025 movies. We did Sinners, and I think we did one other one this year.
I don't even think we did an episode on it. I think we just watched it.
That's right. We went to the theater and we watched Friendship.
And The Naked Gun.
And The Naked Gun, yes. So we don't like to do a lot of comedies on this show. We've talked about that before.
Especially those that are really like,
you need to be a fan of that.
It's just the bits. All you're going to end up talking about is, here's a thing that happened in the movie.
Mm-hmm. That's why we don't really cover comedies on the show. If you want us to, we absolutely will. If you join at that Patreon tier, hey, there's a transition into Patreon. Go to patreon.com/neverseenitpod to not only get access to all of our 5 other shows that we do over there, including Never Scream It 101, where we have already 9 other episodes up there of foundational horror movies in a lot of different subgenres of horror. We've done body horror, we've done zombie stuff, we've done all sorts of different stuff over at patreon.com/neverseenitpod. And if you missed it last Wednesday, every single Wednesday this month, we're going to be putting up a preview featuring just a few minutes from every single episode that we've already posted this year on our Patreon for the show Never Scream It 101. So at least listen to those Wednesday clips if you are at all curious. But of course, the fun remains over on the main show. Betsy, what are we going to be covering next week for our next installment of Never Scream It?
Well, Trent, we hinted at it last month.
We've kind of been hinting at it here for a while.
We kind of hinted at it for a while. But John Carpenter has a lot of movies that we haven't ever seen and we have never talked about. So we've decided it's time we watch arguably his most famous movie.
I think you're right.
At least one of the 2 most famous as far as we're concerned, because next week we're watching The Thing.
And that episode is actually going to be brought to you by one of our listeners. We're going to talk more about it next week. But until then, my name is Trent.
My name is Betsy.
This has been Never Scream It. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.